We're always looking for new ways to store things and transfer files and everything like that. And being able to rate it is always a plus, because then you have a little bit more protection on there. And that's where WAVLink comes in. We're taking a look at the WAVLink Rapid Fire H2R, and we're going to unbox it and we're going to set it up. I actually got two because we can daisy chain these together to get you more storage options. And we're going to do that next on Geekazine. What's up, my geeks? Jeffrey Powers here from Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek. WAVLink did send me a product to review, but they are not sponsoring this video. I also got product from our friends over at Kingston to put into this, and of course, they're also not sponsoring this video, but I'd like to thank them for sending me product. All opinions are of my own at Geekazine. You can find out more over at geekazine.com/review. And of course, if you've got a product that you want me to take a look at, all you have to do is go over to the contact page and we'll get that in shop. I also like to thank my Patreons, and of course you can tip the channel by going over to venmo.com/Geekazine. This is the WAVLink Rapid Fire H2R. It is a dual drive dock that allows you to basically take your storage with you, whether you're keeping it at home on your computer or whether you're breaking down your laptop, taking it to another place and setting it up. I'm going to be setting it up in an area where I have to take a lot of large files. Of course, doing video, there's always large files involved, but I'll be taking those large files for transfer over to other places. So I'll probably be using this wavelength for here. But what we're going to do is we're going to unbox it, and then I've got a couple drive options. You can actually connect up some spinning hard drives, or you can connect up SSDs. One of the biggest advantages of the wavelength is you can put in high storage. You can have up to 44 terabytes sitting in this device. If you chain it together, you can double that, and you can double that, and double that. That's what we're going to test out as we go once we unbox this. So we're going to start by simply unboxing this. We'll get this out of the way. Unboxing this and seeing what we've got inside. So open it up. You'll see the wavelength right there. We'll pull that out. On this side, we have our cables and other stuff. So we've got USB-C to USB-A. Plug it into a USB 3.0 or a Thunderbolt and get some pretty good speeds off of there, up to 10 gigabytes, of course. So we have a USB-C to C cable. It is not a Thunderbolt cable. It's a USB-C to C cable. We do have a C to A alternative. Next up is we have the power unit. Of course, this is going to be regular power. We've got, it looks like a stand case of some sort. And we've got various screws for your drives, of course, some instructions, and then finally a couple screwdrivers. And it looks like one of them is magnetic. That's kind of cool. Look at that. Just kind of going back and forth. Let's take a look at the wavelength really quick. As you can see, it's got a really nice case to it. That's a metal case right there. We'll open it up. If the case, the holder is actually plastic, so this is metal, this is plastic. We've got basically a full vent on the side, and of course there's a fan in the back. We've got a switch right here that'll tell us how the configuration of the drives are going to be. Are they going to be two separate drives, or are they going to be working in tandem? However, we've got USB-C, Type-C. The first one will go to our PC or Mac or whatever, but the second one will go to another WAVLink drive if you have it. And that'll go to the PC, and then I think you can hook up to 4 of these. An on-off switch, really simple as that. And then, of course, where we put the power in. The only other thing we need to worry about is on the bottom here. This is where we put in the screws so we can open up the wavelength. Everything else, as you can see, is pretty straightforward. And, of course, this case right now without drives in it is fairly lightweight. I mean, probably less than a pound, maybe around that. So let's go ahead and get this open. We're going to grab our first screwdriver, which is the big screwdriver, and we're going to take out, they only put one screw in, but of course you have the bag of screws, so you can put in more. So we'll take that one screw out, and we'll just set it, well, it's magnetic, we'll set it there, and then we slide it out. Simple as that. There's the case, and of course here is the enclosure. We have all the electronics are down here in this part right here, and of course we have 2 SATA ports, and then of course the drive where we'll put drives in, and then we'll have to secure them with screws. What we're going to start with today is we're going to start with 2 older spinning drives. These are just 1 terabyte drives that I've had forever. I used them for NAS uses, and then of course when my NAS grew, I got bigger drives. So putting these in looks pretty straightforward. All you have to do is set them down in there like so and slide like that, and they're locked in. Now we'll take some screws. I'll probably just do 1 screw on each side because it feels pretty solid, and that's where this little bag of screws comes in. There are different size screws, and so I'm not exactly sure which ones will go into the drives just yet, but you know, we'll be very careful on doing this part. I'll go ahead and put that in. There we go. Nice and tight like that. We will flip this over. We will put the other one in. Oh, okay. It looks like we have to put it in upside down to match up with the SATA connection there. And then of course we will put a screw in. It's interesting that they didn't have these flipped, but this is also helps with heat dispersion. But you don't want to have them up against each other, spreading out heat. So this makes this pretty heavy. I mean, this 2-drive system is probably going to get up to about 5 pounds, I would say. Slide that in. Remember, well, I guess we could have slid it in the other way, but the whole point is the fans are going to be up, and then of course the WAVLink logo is going to be up as well. So we'll go ahead and put this down here. We've got the screws, so we're just going to put 1 in. I'm going to go back and forth with different drives, just like that. All right, perfect. Take our power. This is a 12 volt 4 amp wall wart, and we'll definitely plug it in somewhere, and then we're going to plug it into the computer. Now, the cable is about 2.5 to 3 feet right there, so that's not too bad. And once again, we're going to plug it into the PC side of things. So there it is, plugged in. We're going to check, and of course these little tines, there's the instructions that'll tell you how these buttons, these little switches right here, which you'll just basically take like a small screwdriver like this, and then you can flip them up and down. But I believe they are set to 2 individual drives, and that's what we're going to be first starting with. If they are both up, they're recognized as the sum of the drives. So in this case, there's 1 terabyte on each side, so it'd be 2 terabytes. You have RAID 1 and RAID 0 that you can switch, and that's basically one of the switches up, the other one down. And then, of course, you can look at the manual to see how you have that set up. All right, with that, the single drive, that is what we're going to connect up to my Mac Mini and pull out and see what we can do for speed. And I'm going to be plugging this into the regular USB-C on the front of the Mac Mini. And this is a Mac Mini M4. So the back USBs are Thunderbolt 5, but the front USB are USB-C, and we want to test it this way. A couple more things I wanted to show you here. First of all, this is a support piece, so it basically goes underneath the WAVLink. If you have regular spinning drives in it, it's pretty heavy, so it's not going to do too much. But if you have the SSDs, it might move around, so this is going to help on that. If you don't need it, of course, throw it in the box. The other thing is I found that there was a couple other things I missed on that first inspection here, and I want to show those to you really quick. So we have a couple more things. First of all, there's a reset button right here, and you're going to have to reset that if you switch anything over from the dual drives to the single drive to the RAID. First of all, there's a reset button down here. If you switch it from dual drives to single drive to RAID 1 to RAID 0, you're going to have to hit the reset switch, so it will reconfigure it. The other thing is on the top here, there's a series of LED lights, and these are going to be your indicators as how the system is set up, if the hard drives are being seen, if they're being seen as separate, if they're being seen as one, if they're RAID 0 or RAID 1. All this will be indicated right here on these LED lights. All right, with this said and done, let's see if I have enough cord length. There we go. To get this plugged in here. And remember, when you're plugging it into the PC or Mac, it needs to go into the PC side, not the other side, because that can cause problems. So go ahead and plug that in, hit the on switch. And now, as you can see, this is set up for 2 separate drives. The fan's not spinning just yet, but I have a feeling once this starts to heat up, we'll start to see this spin. We have blue lights here. We've got blinking white lights, so it recognized the first drive and it recognized the second drive. So now we've got both drives, and these are supposed to illuminate blue like this in any situation. You see a little bit blinking, that's when it's reading on the computer. Let's move over to the Mac and take a look at this right now. Now I have these set to exFAT, and as you can see, one's just a little bit under a terabyte. I think it's because I had data on here and it was APFS. What we're going to do is I'm going to open up one of these, this one right here, and I'm just going to copy over a file, a simple file. It's one of my background file, and I want to show you how this works here. So now we've got a little bit data. It's right here. Yeah, it's on this drive right here. So we have some data in here. So now let's go ahead and switch this over to a single drive. And how we're going to do that is, once again, I'm basically turning this off. These are scratch drives, so if they die, it's not a big deal. It'll just kind of ruin the moment here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these over. We'll hit the reset button. I need to figure out if I need to have this on or off for the reset. And I think it has to be off. And then we'll turn this back on, and we should see it as one drive. Now, just to keep in mind when you're dealing with these things, make sure that the switches are all the way to one side. You don't want them caught in the middle. So I'm going to do that right now. This screwdriver will also help us reset it. So I got to turn this on. It will figure things out. And then I'm going to hit the reset button and let it initialize. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to hit the reset button for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll let go. We have a different situation. It's asking us, do we want to inject this or initialize? We're going to initialize the drive. And now it's showing us as a USB 3.1 device, large media. So now this is one drive. As you can see, it says 2 terabytes. You can kind of see it says 2 terabytes over there. Let me lift this up a little bit. There you go, 2 terabytes. So it sees it as that. We definitely want to make this into a drive. So we're going to make this into an exFAT drive. Now we have an untitled drive, 2 terabytes. Let's take a look at the drive. As you can see, it was erased. So our file, which we copied over, is not there. Let's copy that file again. There we go. And we're seeing 91 megabytes being used, but it's being used across 2 drives. Now, if we look over here to the drive, as you can see, now we have the outer lights are on, but we are in large capacity mode. So this light is lit up. And notice that when it was separate before, all 3 lights were up. Now only the single light is up. When we go between the 2 RAIDs, we're going to have that same thing. So let's go ahead and set this up for one of the RAIDs. All right, we're going to go RAID 0 first. So RAID 0 is going to make it still a 2 terabyte hard drive, and it's going to try and talk back and forth and put the data on both of them. RAID 1 is where the secondary drive becomes technically a backup to the primary drive, and the primary drive is always the smaller of the 2 drives. We're going to turn it back on, and it's still going to think that it's in large disk mode, so this light should still light up, and I might have initialize on the Mac, but we'll see. Oh, it sees it as an untitled. So what we're going to do is we're going to push in this button for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and look at that. That just switched it over. The first thing that happens, of course, is do you want to initialize the drive? We're going to say yes. And now whatever data is on there is pretty much gone. So as you can see, it's an uninitialized drive. We're going to have to format it with something, but we're going to see it as 1 terabyte as opposed to 2 terabytes. Let's move that up. There we go. So let's go ahead and erase the drive. We're going to stay with the exFAT for now because we want to see it on PCs and Macs. And they do mention something about if you switch it from Mac to PC, you could lose data, and that's always the case for a lot of drives. But so use it at your own risk if you are doing that. I do that a lot, and I rarely see any type of data loss when it goes from one computer to the other computer. So as long as you have them in exFAT, they'll read them just fine. If you set one to NTFS and one to APFS, then you run into some problems. You can have a Mac read an NTFS drive, and it's tough to do, but you can have a PC do an APFS drive. You just don't want to do it. Just set it up for exFAT if you have to talk between a PC and a Mac. Everything's set up here. So now we're seeing the drive. The drive has used 13.9 megs, which you won't see because it's just basically a table that's saying, hey, this is how everything's structured. And we've got the file right here. We'll just bring over the file again. And there we go. It says that 89 megabytes is used, but we have 999.95 gigabytes. So it's thinking this is a 1 terabyte drive because it's using one drive as a backup as opposed to using them both in tandem. And when it comes to 2 drives, that's perfect for that, because if one drive dies, you want to have that other drive to save all that data so you don't lose your data, because I've done that. That's happened to me many times. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 terabyte in there or 4 terabytes or 26 terabytes. If it's backing up, let it back up. And always, especially when you're talking spinning media, always have tools to check the drive to make sure your data is safe. Now we've done RAID 1. We're going to switch this over to RAID 0. So I'm going to turn this off once again, and we're going to flip the switches. And I think I said RAID 0 first, but I don't know what happened. I think the manual's backwards from what the toggle switches are supposed to be. Now we should see this once we reset it as a 2 terabyte RAID 0. So now we're going to turn this on. It should still say RAID 1. Yep. And we're going to reset it. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. Look at that. Now we're at RAID 0. Let's go ahead and initialize it. So it basically can't read the data anymore. And with the drive, once again, there we go. We're seeing 2 terabytes on here. So now we'll go ahead and set that up once again for exFAT. 2 terabytes. Good to go. Open this up, which should be completely blank. We can bring over a file. And now this technically should also be running a little bit faster as it's going between the 2 drives, in theory, but we're talking spinning media. So if I we could run the tests, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty slow. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and run the test anyway. Here we have the disk speed test that we normally run to test these things. We'll choose the drive. We're going to do 5 gigabytes here. And we're going to set this target drive to, and then let's hit the start button. Gotta love the speed of spinning media. There we go. We're just doing one test. So as you can see, it's fairly low. So, but now let's go ahead. We've done that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip the switch a little bit, literally, and we're going to take out the SSD drives, and I'm going to put in these brand new Kingston KC600 drives. These are SSD drives, 1 terabyte drives. So it'll give us 2 terabytes into the box, just like with the spinning drives. And then when we daisy chain with the second one, we'll have 4 terabytes coming through. So we're going to do that next. All right, let's talk for a minute here about AE Juice. I am now an affiliate of AE Juice, in where I'm taking this content and making my videos better, and you could do the same thing too, from LUTs to sound effects to transitions to even AI elements and a lot more. You can bring a whole ton of stuff in. You're seeing that as we're going. You can check that out over at geekazine.com/AE Juice for the free starter pack. Of course, there's many other packs over at AE Juice. You can check that out over there, but geekazine.com/AE Juice. Now let's get back into the content. All right, so I'm putting in the Kingston drives and a couple things that I've noticed. First of all, you can see this one, drive 1, is fitting perfectly here. It's right onto the plastic. However, since the other one is hard drive 2 is on a flipped drive system, notice how this drive is actually hanging. So it has absolutely no support. And the other problem right here, if you notice, is that there are no holes to screw these down in, whereas with the regular hard drive there are. Now you can get enclosures to put this into, so it's here and there, but those enclosures would most likely put that SSD in the middle, so you might run into some problems with this. I think the most easiest thing to do is just drill a hole into here, and you'll have a little bit more security, because especially with this second drive, because you see how that's more like a diving board than anything, and there's no support. You might also want to, I would probably 3D print a little block right here that basically holds this up. That is something to be concerned about, because of the fact that these don't move at all, and I would rather have it see like this. That's more stable, but unfortunately with this, you got to do it this way. Here's the other thing, is the weight difference. This is actually 645 grams, which is about 1.25 pounds. With the hard drives in, that made it about 4 pounds. So 1.25 versus 4, that's a big weight difference, and you might need that spacer just to hold it in place if it moves around. But it should have less heat, it should have less spinning, so less vibration coming from here. The fan might not be used as much. I noticed that the fan doesn't turn on instantly. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way. And let's go ahead and plug this back in. So now we have 2 terabytes of SSD drive in here. We're going to plug this into the PC. Now we're still set to RAID 0, but notice how across the board it's just initialized. Here's our drive, 2.05 terabytes. That's pretty cool. I am noticing that the fan right here actually is spinning right now, so it might just be an initial spin and then set down, but we're seeing the drives working. And now what we can do is we can go back to our disk speed test, and we'll make sure we're on the right drive. Let's run a speed test. Oh, a lot better results, although the write speed, notice how it starts really fast and then it just slows down a little bit. Now this is directly from the USB-C on the front of the Mac Mini, not the Thunderbolt. We're seeing about 943 megabytes for write and about 783 for read. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this so I can plug it into the back to the Thunderbolt 5 and see if we can get a better speed readout from there. Right, here we go. Let's go ahead and hit start. We're getting the same write and read speeds. All right, it's time to get geeky.
I know it's geeky.
WAVLink says that you can actually daisy chain these wavelinks together, up to 4 of them. And so they sent me 2 of them to try out. So I got 2. All 4 of them have the Kingston 1 terabyte drives in them. So this is what we've got right here. So basically this is the primary. This is going to the PC. From this cable, it's going to the PC on this one, and then from here I actually have it connected up to a SanDisk. I wanted to connect it up to my WAVLink NVMe drive, but this is Thunderbolt 5. Apparently it doesn't work. Even if I plugged it directly here, it wasn't working, and I do have this still in the Thunderbolt 5 port of the Mac Mini, so you can't do this. But standard drive like the SanDisk right here, I was able to plug in, and I can see it easily on my HD part here. So we have 2 untitled drives. That's untitled, that's the primary, and that's the secondary. You can label them as such. And then of course I have this usually connected up to my ATEM Mini ISO. And so that's what you're seeing there. So they work as separate drives, but they work together. Now here's the question, and that is, what's the speed? We already know the speed of this one and through the speed test. But as we go deeper down the well, I have a feeling we're going to see less speed. So let's go ahead and go into Untitled 2. And now we're going to do a speed test on that secondary drive, which is definitely spinning up right there. All right. Well, I am a little bit surprised. Okay, the read's a little bit less. The write, I'd have to watch the write again. Yeah, the write seems to be pretty decent, the same as the first one. The read, of course, is going to be a little bit more to travel through. So with that said, let's go ahead and switch over to the ATEM, because then that's third part in that chain. And once again, we're seeing about 940 for write, 745 for read. So a little bit less than the primary drive. We should probably do the primary drive again, just to make absolutely sure that those numbers are going to be the same. But that's interesting because the SanDisk is several years old, and I use this all the time. And so I thought there'd be a lot less speed on the SanDisk, but it turns out that it's matching with the other two wavelengths. So let's go ahead and stop this. We're going to go back to the first untitled drive. And there we go. Same write speed, but the read speed is a little bit better on the primary as opposed to the secondary or the triary. So keep that in mind. I'm going to do one more test. I'm going to get these wavelengths out of the way. I'm going to plug the SanDisk directly in there, and I want to see what the speed of the SanDisk is on its own. The front USB-C plug, I also used it in the Thunderbolt 5 plug, and I ran some speed tests. I'm still getting the same numbers from all of them, so that's pretty interesting. All right, so that is the WAVLink Rapid Fire H2R dual drive enclosure for transferring files from computer to computer, or just using it as a backup for your computer. Let's take a look at some of the pros and the cons. The pros are, it's a nice case. It can take a regular hard drive versus an SSD. Doesn't do NVMe drives unless you get like an SSD enclosure adapter. Then it will probably work from there, but I have not tested that out, and you could try it, but let me know the results in the comments below. You can daisy chain these things. You can set it up for individual drives, or you can set it up for RAID. I like that idea. I don't normally use RAID unless you have 3 or 4 drives in there, because then you have redundancy. If one of the drives does die, then you can swap it out and it'll rebuild itself. But when it comes to a 2-drive system, I like it striped. I've done striped RAID before. That way the secondary drive has all the data. If one of the drives dies, the other one has it. They do the job in switching to RAID. Kind of a little bit weary on that whole idea that you have to hit the reset button. In all, that's minor to some of the bigger gaping issues that I found. Like, for instance, when you're putting in the SSD drives, there's nothing to secure it down. So if one of them wiggles out, you drop it and it falls out, boom, all of a sudden you might have some data loss right there. The speed test tells me a lot about what's going to be happening with my data. As you notice, it starts out strong at about 1.25 and then drops down to 900. If I have large files, it'll start strong and then it'll drop down and take a long while to actually transfer through. Even with APFS, it wasn't showing much speed difference. So, and then of course daisy chaining it. They work as separate drives. Don't expect them to work as one drive. That's just not going to happen. But they daisy chain just fine, and I had no problems. The only issue is there's now 2 plugs to deal with, and I'm hoping that they might have some sort of splitter adapter or a special plug that if you get 2 or 3 or 4 wavelengths, that you get this special plug, and then they'll just all plug in as one plug rather than 4 separate plugs. It's easy to open, it's easy to put the drives in, and it works pretty much out of the box once you have it configured. So for the most part, I like the idea of how these drives work. I have a little bit of concern of the speed of the drive. But the real question is, what do you think of these drives? Is this something that you would get? Let me know in the comments below over at geekazine.com, youtube.com/Geekazine, where you can like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you know when the next video comes out. Until next time, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching. You guys geek out and store all your files onto external media. Of course, Geekazine has a whole bunch of merch, including t-shirts and hoodies. Like, for instance, the Geekazine logo hoodie. We got some great t-shirts, including 80s Jesus Saved Me, Guardian of the Geekery, the original Geek AI t-shirt. We have a couple variations of this one. And then I Like Geek Butts and I Cannot Live. There are several more and more that are being added to the Geekazine merch page, so you can check that out over at Teespring. If you're on YouTube, you'll see those links below, and then over at amazon.com/shop/Geekazine. I appreciate that very much because it does support the channel. Now let's get back into this video.